Hello and welcome back to Ask Anoushka. As always, I hope that you're all doing really well. So we have another heartfelt question. Do you know what, guys? I'm really sorry that you guys are going through this. Like, I know that this is so difficult, and I know it's really hard to see the woods from the trees at the moment, and everything that is happening is so painful and so hurtful. But honestly, when you have different understanding about what is going on, like, this will help you to move forward. So I really hope these videos kind of help you to kind of understand these things and maybe look at them in a different light or in a different way, because honestly, you will get through this. But I know right now it is so hard to see that you will, but I promise you, you will. Okay, so this question comes from one of my Instagram followers, and she says, do you ever just stop and just have some time out to just cry it out? I try to forget him, but I feel like I'm just grieving the loss of the masked guy I fell for. As much as I held up strong internally, I just broke down, and I fought it as much as I could. I couldn't just hold it in anymore. I really am trying to be strong. It still just hurts. The breakdown of these relationships, these toxic relationships, there's so many levels to it, all right? There's so much to it that is involved. It doesn't just affect you, you know, on an emotional level. It affects you on a psychological level, but also your identity is lost in all of this. You just don't know how to feel. You don't know where to find yourself. You can't make way for yourself in this world. You just feel like you don't know who you are. You don't know what you're supposed to feel. This is the tragedy of it. And I think the grieving part of it also comes from actually your identity of who you were in this relationship, in this scenario, in this experience. It's also about how you find yourself and who you are going to be going forward, because this is about grieving the relationship that was going to be, or the future that was going to be with this person, and it's just not there anymore. It's gone. So, you know, like, what do you do? What do you do with this? And I think that's where the grief comes from. It's about grieving who you were as a couple, but who you were meant to be, what you were supposed to have with this person. And I feel like that is one of the hardest things to get past. For this masked guy, as you called him, that's exactly what this is. These are people who do not come to the table authentically. They don't come to you as their true selves. There's always an ulterior motive. They always bring somebody else into the mix. Like, how many personalities are there in this scenario? Because they are not the same person when they leave as the person that when you have met. So they change, and it's like, who are you? Who were you really? And they make you believe this illusion of this relationship, of these things that you are, these things that you're going to be, you're going to have, you know, in not only just in this relationship, but you build your whole identity around this. Because when you are emotionally invested in a relationship like this, you wholeheartedly come to the relationship, and you know, you love with all your heart, and you never for one moment think that this is going to end and you're going to have to rebuild your life from nothing. Okay, because they take so much from us. And this is the thing, this is exactly it. It's about the rebuilding, that new identity, building that future. But I think also it's so important to just be, to just let it process. And that's what the crying is about. The crying, I would say, is, if you have the time and the space, do it. Simply because crying is very good for you. It's about releasing, and it's about releasing all of those toxins, all of the emotional pain, all of that energy that you have held on to. And this really gives me an indicator, because when we are traumatized, when we're emotionally traumatized in these kind of scenarios, in these relationships, all right, we're in the fight or flight mode. So we're very frozen. We don't know how to react. We become very stuck, and we are just in survival mode, all right? We can't really process what is happening. So this is the disconnection that happens from ourselves. And when we are out of these situations and we have the time to just land, this is when the crying, this is when the processing begins, because we're not in that fight or flight. We're not in that traumatized state of trying to survive something. We are actually now trying to piece together to try and understand what has happened then. And this is why the crying is good, because it's the release of this emotion, the release of trying to understand and process what you have gone through. So please take some time to just stop and cry it out. The more that you resist this, the harder it will be for you to be able to process your emotions and go forward. This is part of the healing process. And I know that we're always taught to show that we are strong and that we should just get over these people, that everything will be fine if we move forward. But what about, let's rewind a bit. What about having to process this? What about having to make sense of what has happened in these relationships? We don't really give ourselves time. So this is why I say, journal, write about it. This isn't like a 2-month process and then, hey, let's get back onto the dating scene. This isn't about that. This is about rebuilding your whole identity, who you are, what you believe in, because so much is taken from us in these relationships. We lose ourselves because we have to conform to what they want. We have been manipulated, we've been gaslighted, we have been lied to. And all of this means that we disconnect from ourselves, because then we begin to doubt who we are, what we believe in, and what our purpose is here. So this time that you are going to spend on yourself, this is about really connecting to yourself, to the truth of who you are, to your authenticity, and making and allowing to build that sense of self back up again. One thing that I always say that's really helpful is to remember who you were before you met the narcissist. Who were you as a person before you met the narcissist? You might like to journal this, you might like to visualize this. Sometimes it might be helpful to put music on, like maybe even really kind of relaxing music, ambient music, or music from that era, if this was quite some time ago, you know, like 5, 7, 10, 15 years ago. Like, what was the music? What was it like then? What were you doing? Try to embody that experience and really understand who you were before you met the narcissist. This is connection to self. This is getting to know yourself. This is building your identity of who you were. And if there is times or there are periods of time where you need to mourn and you need to grieve that person that was lost, try and reconnect, because this really helps to get in touch with that person that you were. Because again, the mourning and the grieving is about loss, but we need to bring that back in. We need to embody ourselves back to that time and that person who we were. This in turn builds strength. This in turn builds that connection to yourself. This builds this relationship with yourself as well, which is so, so important. And also, once you have this, once you have built this and you get to recognize yourself, you know, this is really good in like boundaries, in putting boundaries, putting up protection, not just against narcissistic people, but other people in your life who can be toxic, or other people that you're going to meet who can be toxic and want to take more than what you're actually willing to give. So this builds this kind of protection to help you to assert yourself in these situations, because it happens all the time, whether with friendships, at work. And it's about being able to say no with a smile on your face, without having to feel guilt, without having to feel any sort of dread that you're being rude or selfish. No, because when you have a strong and balanced self, you can do anything, because that gives you the confidence in yourself, and that really helps with your self-worth. So I know right now it might feel really uncomfortable for you where you are in this process, but know that you're not going to stay in this position for long. But you need to go through this to get to the other side. You need to be able to build up your own power. You need to build up your own self-identity. You need to be able to build up your confidence and your strength. And crying isn't a sign of weakness. This is a sign of strength. And you are on the right track. You are going to get through this. And just give yourself permission to be able to process this, and you will get through it. So guys, I really hope that this video has helped. And I'm sorry for those of you who are going through this right now without the understanding, without knowing that actually, do you know what? This is a good thing. Being able to cry, being able to get rid of all of this negative energy that has been stored up, these negative emotions that have been stored up and had nowhere to go. This is the release. The crying is the release of that. So it is a very, very healing to be able to do that. So I encourage you, if you're at that stage, I encourage you to do that. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.